This lifestyle that I'm living, shawty know that it get crazy. We'll make it through the rain, you gon' always be my baby. Cause I slide for you, but would you really do the same? And I'ma stay 100 if you swear you never change. This lifestyle that I'm living, shawty know that it get crazy. We'll make it through the rain, you gon' always.
All right, this is the True Diamond VVS podcast, and this is your host, your boy Germs, and we have a very special guest today. We have Taylor Takahashi, who is from the movie Boogie, and he's well known for his role, playing the lead in that role. And it's a basketball movie directed by Mr. Eddie Huang. And let's just get straight to it. How you feeling, Taylor? I'm
good, man. Thanks for having me. Happy to be a part of this True VVS podcast and support the homie, man.
Yeah. It's crazy to see how far you've come in your journey. I think a lot of people, appreciate that movie. I think a lot of basketball fans and also the Asian community in general, really appreciate that movie. And it's kind of like all around that sort of like the Asian American phase, of like Crazy Rich Asians and and this movie kind of goes along with that group of films. And so, let's talk about kind of, where you're from. I think a lot of people are curious about, how did Taylor come to be? So, where were you born and raised?
I grew up in Alameda, mainly Alameda, but the Bay Area. And I think I'm pretty thankful for growing up in like a diverse, multicultural city like that. And so much of what I played as a character didn't really exist for me anyways. But again, I wasn't a first generation immigrant in America either. And so being Japanese American and fourth generation at that, being in Alameda, I felt a little detached from my culture. And so a lot of what I've done in kind of my adulthood has been to kind of connect back with my culture. And kind of hopefully be a part of that generation that kind of reverses the script. And I think as we get older and as the generations grow, it's kind of like you get further and further away. And I'm hoping to kind of like detach from the growing away and kind of restart and kind of get back into like the cultural roots of everything. But, the Bay Area kind of allowed me to be whoever I wanted to be, you know. It was pretty open. Alameda especially. I mean, when I was as a kid, like all you wanted to do is get the hell out of Alameda,
for real.
But looking back now and being an adult, it's like it's a pretty cool place to live, to be honest with you.
And I feel like I guess what people don't know is we grew up in Alameda together. It's crazy because people see Taylor Takahashi and Boogie and they think like this guy is like he just kind of got good in basketball overnight, but like they don't know the history of Taylor, and I do, and I could kind of explain a little bit of how even in middle school, like I went to Chipman, which no longer exists. It's like now a charter school, but I went to Chipman, and even when I was in Chipman and playing with some of the guys there, like X and all them, we heard of Taylor Takahashi, the guy on the other side of Alameda, who was the star at Lincoln Middle School, you know what I'm saying, and so. My boy Tim Hahn, you know what I'm saying? Like he went shout out to Tim, bro. And he went to Lincoln and he told me like, dude, like, and Tim is a good basketball player too. He's like, there's one guy who's better than me, and this guy named Taylor Takahashi, from Bay Farm. So I'm like, dude, like,
well, Tim, where you at, bro? You never told me that, man. I need to hear it from your mouth, please. Nah.
And so like, I guess my question is, how did you get into basketball? I know just like as a small background, like your brother played basketball too, and how did he play an influence in your interest?
So both my parents grew up playing basketball.
Okay.
My mom would always be like, oh, I'm like the, don't turn the ball over, point guard, and it's like, yeah, okay, I can see it. My dad, my dad doesn't really, like, he told me like, oh yeah, I used to drop like 20, or I could do this, or I could just jump out the gym, and it'd be like, bro, I need to see some film. You know, like right. You could talk all you want, but I need to see some film. Like, yeah. Unless I see that, like you're paying all your homies to come talk to me and tell me that you're good, right?
Exactly.
But no, like I from what I know, my dad was actually a pretty stellar basketball player.
Okay.
And so the game kind of just naturally kind of trickled down and filtered to me as well too. Sports in general, I think both my parents just saw it as a way to teach me about different lessons in life. And using the game for more than a game. Yes, it was important to succeed and do well, but it was also just to teach me some life lessons. And so basketball has always been a huge part. My brother is 5 years older than me, so I never got to play with him. We had that kind of year gap. He graduated with a year gap, and it was kind of like, it was a funny thing. It was like, I thought I was the coolest kid ever because the Alameda High School basketball coach, told me in 8th grade, like, come here, I got you, we'll filter you through the system, blah, 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 right? And I thought I was the coolest kid ever, and I was like, I don't want to go anywhere else, you know? My mom had asked me about, like, Bishop O'Dowd, St. Joe's, like, private school, but it's like, all the kids I grew up with, like, didn't really go there, you know? And so it's like, I didn't want to detach, I had my friend group. High school was kind of like the time for all of the separate middle schools to kind of possibly come together. And, our network grows. And so, going to private school, doing that just for basketball, like, wasn't really the experience that I wanted. And I obviously knew Alameda High wasn't going to be like a high level basketball team. But it wasn't really about that. Like, when you're in that time I guess when you're in that time and you're in that mindset, it's more so like, I'm going to try to put it on the map. Right. It's like the cliche story, right? Everyone wants to try to put their thing on the map, blah, blah, whatever. But we actually were able to have some success in that, being able to do so, in high school. I think we made the first playoff team in like 10 years or 15 years, something like that. And then we made state for the first time ever, which was great, and it was fun. But basketball has just been that vehicle, that vessel to kind of help teach lessons for me, winning, but being, not overconfident, being a good sport, losing, and how you deal with kind of the challenges of losing. Was it by a lot? Was it to a bad team, a good team, right? Like, there's so many navigating and teaching moments through the sport that I see now. I had a great conversation when the movie came out with one of my old basketball coaches. And I was like, I finally really understand what you were trying to teach me. And yes, you were trying to teach me about full court pressing and running this play that I would not want to do. But you were teaching me so much about the structure of life. And it's just been really interesting, over the course of my last couple of years in life, just meeting people that use the game kind of for the same way, or they use their sport as a way to kind of introduce themselves to new people, but then also just learn about, like, the harder sections of life. And, like, that's just a fair arena to exercise, like, those deeper emotions that stuff happens with. And so as a kid, I didn't understand it as much, but I had a conversation with my mom when I was in 9th grade. And we were driving on Park Street, infamous street in Alameda, after one of my games. And she was like, I've always wanted you to play basketball. And I was like, okay, where's this going? Like, we just won. Like, let me, like, where's, like, the pizza celebration or whatever, exactly. But she, like, kind of went into explaining to me, how important it is, for me to play basketball, and it has nothing to do with me succeeding in it. It has nothing to do with, scoring X amount of points, trying to get a scholarship, trying to do all of that. It was really just like, this is the best game for you to learn these things from. That, like, my parents got divorced when I was in, like, 3rd grade, but it was like a way for her as a single mom for me to kind of get structure and for me to kind of understand these lessons. So basketball is way more than a game for me, and I'm so happy that it's like that.
And I think to that point, a lot of, like, I didn't realize until, like, even, like, adult life, how much sports teach you about, just the way to live your life, like, even with, like, coaches and interacting with coaches and how they, even if you work a job, you have a manager, like, just small things like that, and learning how to be disciplined, how to just kind of have a team dynamic, have cooperation, and how to lead a team too.
Exactly.
That I know that you're the captain of the Alameda High School basketball team when we were in high school, and I feel like you also had sort of a pressure too, you know. I mean, everyone was like, dude, this guy is gonna lead us, you know, to the promised land essentially, you know. And I feel like with that pressure, it came a lot of responsibility, and like being able to take that responsibility and take it to the next level and learn how to manage it at such a young age is very different, you know.
It's funny, bro, you say that, because my junior year when we first made the playoffs, I'll never forget this. This is the only game of basketball where I've like truly played nervous, and like not necessarily scared, but I'll never forget the moment. We were playing. We had a home game for the first playoff game that we've had in, I don't know, 15, 20 years, whatever it is. So you're naturally like hyped. Yeah. But I was so nervous. So I wasn't the guy that had like I do this before every game, you know what I mean? But something was just off. Heart was beating faster, couldn't control the nerves. There's like the stake, and like what you talked about, there's like a pressure to perform. You're at home. We're the favored seed, albeit by one, but like we have the home game. Right. And I played like shit, man. I honestly played like shit. And it was unfortunate because in my opinion, our second best player at that time was Wes Edwards, the homie, and he was a senior. And I was like, damn, man, like I'm not even like, I'm upset for myself for sure, and I'm like disappointed, but I'm also like kind of upset that like the homie doesn't have a chance anymore. You know, that was like his chance. And so that taught me like next year, like I absolutely do not want to feel this anymore. I don't like this feeling. But now that I've been here, I'm no longer like the deer in the headlights. Like I like will now kind of relish this opportunity. And luckily I had another year, right? Some people don't get that extra year. Some people, they never get to that moment. And so that next year rolled into it, super confident, was able to win a couple games. And to be honest, it felt like kind of the Warriors beating the Mavericks in like round one. It's like you just won like round one, but it's like, dude, that's our championship, you know? Like we're not a state finals basketball team. We get it. But like this was the small win that I think we all like collectively were working for. And so that experience was great.
So when you reflect on high school in general, like what are some things that if you were to go back, like things that you would change, or if you were to speak to yourself as a you know, from what you know now to talking to your 18-year-old or 17-year-old self, like would you have given any different advice?
It would be to, I think what I did a lot in high school was like just being okay with being like good. You know what I mean? And it's not like you have to go and be like, well, obviously you want to be great, but like it doesn't mean you have to like take that to the 10th degree. But for me, it would just be to like apply yourself. And that would be like full circle. School and me were like oil and water. Like I did everything I could to possibly stay out of class. But it would be to apply yourself and just understanding that like the more full rounded you are as a human being, as a person, I think the better off you will be, just situation wise, experience wise, and like what you get exposed to. And I think applying myself in the classroom as much as I did on the court would have been just as an experience-wise, I think would have just been different. And so there's nothing I would go back and be like, oh, I regret doing this, you know, whatever. Probably wouldn't have a girlfriend throughout all of high school, like most of high school. I probably would tell myself, like, hey, man, there's so many fish in the sea, you know, like that whole cliche. But no. Seriously, I would just say to just apply yourself on like a full rounded kind of manner and kind of don't be so locked in on being the sport guy and just kind of open yourself up to all things and all parties.
No, that's just funny that you say that, because I remember like I think maybe since freshman year of high school, like you had a girlfriend basically like till
like
almost
on and off girlfriend, and then just like ugh, like what are you thinking, man? Like, you know, but it is what it is. Like you just, again, that taught me a lot about, you know, relationships and how to navigate them, and gave me, I guess, experience early. But yeah, it would just be to kind of like let that whole experience like take fruition and not kind of like just sector yourself off into a certain place.
I think that's good advice. And I think I think in high school, like I remember, I feel like sports and like your friends and even like girls, or you know, it consumes a lot, you know what I'm saying? Like I used to think about like our times when we used to go to school, and I used to like reflect on like what I got to wear, like you know, you have to kind of like feel like you need to carry a certain image, especially
there's
like,
so much like you fail to realize that like it's so much bigger than like the school grounds, right? But when you're in it, it feels like that's like the world, right? Like that's just like everything, that's we're gonna be there from 8 to 2:30 or 3 o'clock, so it's the biggest portion of the day. If we play sports, we're staying there for a couple hours after for practice or study hall, right? But like we're just in that bubble, and so we think that like that's the most important bubble that exists. And so having the best fit, having the hottest girl, having like the acclamation of things, like the awards, like matter. You know? But like when you really think about it and you get older, it's like none of that shit matters.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And I'm like the life that you had in high school doesn't translate at all once you leave high school. And
anything is like the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's like, you're just like I think about it all the time, and I just think like, man, like I spent so much time consumed with so many things that I shouldn't have, because I'm like, well, carrying yourself with a certain image or like kind of feeling like you need to be somebody. Yeah, it's like, and once you leave, you're just like, dude, this is stupid. And you go to a new place like college, or if you go into work, you're a nobody essentially, and you start over. And so I think for me, if I were to go back and talk to myself, I'd be like, make as many good connections as you can. Don't be in this circle of like, the football team or the basketball team, and really just make connections with everybody. Exactly. Because you just never know who you're going to run into, and somebody, and you want to work for a company, and that person that you went to high school with might be a manager, or like it might even be the CEO of that company. You just never know.
Seriously, man. Yeah. Seriously. And I think that's just like something as an adolescent, you obviously don't understand, but it's so important, just the power of connection, right?
For sure.
And it's so important to connect with as many people as possible, not in hopes of, this person's going to help hook me up, or like they're a plug on this, but it's just like, you never know the walk of life that people are going to travel down. And mine being, albeit an actor, would have not even had a lot of dreams growing up as a kid to, hit a game-winning shot, to do, go to space, like, be a cowboy, like anything, but not a movie star really wasn't, and I'm not a movie star, but being in a movie really wasn't in the cards for me, in the deck, or as a thought process. But that's what happens when you are open to people, you let people in, you're honest, you're authentic, you're real, and people feel that. It's not I sense that, like, people really feel that. And I think they connect to, like, real people like to connect with real authentic people. It's just like natural. And it sucks when you get the person who's fake being authentic and real, and kind of is that one bad apple in the bunch. But absolutely, I think that's spot on in trying to just remain open, and I think high school was a lot of sectioned off, and it's kind of that's just high school life, right? Like, you're just kind of like this group. So I absolutely would agree with you, and just trying to like expand your circle, right? And expand your like your coolness, and like, you can make anything fucking cool, to be honest with you.
And I think about that all the time. I'm like, dude, like, honestly, like, when I look back, I'm like, dude, you weren't that cool. Like, at the end of the day, like, you weren't that cool. And it's like, I feel like my definition of like what I thought was success, like, changes, and
100%.
And I'm like, dude, like, I should spend more time doing X, or I should spend more time doing, some different stuff. Like, like, even at that young age, you have so many opportunities, and people are willing to give you opportunities because you're young, and so you're taking more advantage of, like, even like volunteering, or like doing internships and things like that, exposing yourself to different parts of the world.
It's the exposure,
and like, I think that's like so important for people, and it's like, I knew that if I knew that then, like, I still would have listened to myself.
Oh, hell no.
But you have to go through life to like reflect back and say, like, this is what I should have done. This probably would have helped me more.
Absolutely.
And so
it's like, you find those moments, like, when I first moved down to OC, the homies were like coaching their strength and conditioning, a basketball team. And so it was like, there's a mix of seniors and juniors, sophomore, like, a fun varsity team. But like, you find those moments in life where like you're able to like just plop some advice down. And it's not so much of like, trust me, do this. It's more so just like, if I make this, coming from me, and who I am and like the relatability age factor. I'm not like a 55-year-old dude that's like, dude, back in my day, you know?
Right.
It's just like they can see the relatability factor. I'm removed from it, but I'm really like not that far removed.
Yeah.
10 years is a long time, but like in spec, really not that long.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I found moments to just be like, hey, it's not really coaching, but it's just like, yo, like, look after this. You know what I mean? Like, when you're doing things, like, expose yourself to things, do different stuff. Don't just be the basketball guy. Don't just be the guy who jumps the highest. Don't just be the fastest guy. Like, expose yourself to different things and see what happens. And some of the kids will do it. Some of the kids won't do it. But it's, it's like if we walked back in with all the knowledge, we still would go through the same things we went through because you have to. But it's just cool to reflect back and just understand and grow, because some people don't. Some people will stay kind of locked into that mentality. They'll stay locked into those, like, their horizons will never broaden. And it's not like, oh, that sucks, but it's just like, there are some people that will try to like hinder that growth for you. And so it's like, get rid of those people, do your own thing, create your own lane, and live in it and just see what happens,